Hey everyone, welcome back. I have Hugo Alonso from Stay Winning Podcast as my weekly guest, and I love it. I love what's going on. I love the kind of community we're bringing together and a lot of the feedback that we're getting. And today, we have a topic that I kind of saw that he tweeted a while back, and I love it. And let me see what it goes. Even a bird knows to build the nest before it hatches the eggs. So, welcome back, Hugo. And can you kind of touch on this a little bit?
Hey, what's up, Mark? What's up to all the winners listening out there? Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, I think that's a great tweet or post, and it's my pinned one, and it's something I really stand behind as far as branding goes. As we mentioned in previous episodes, a lot of issues are related to financial literacy, and I was a child that didn't come from a financially well-off family, and I can see if there was just financial literacy in place or different decisions were made, there'd be a lot of scars I could have avoided. So my message with Stay Winning Podcast is to help people break the chains of poverty. And a lot of times when the nest isn't built first, it's hard to break from those chains. And of course, I'm speaking metaphorically here. And I like to use a bird as an example because a bird will clearly or literally build the nest first and then hatch the eggs, meaning it already provides shelter and resources before the kids are even born. So I feel like if more people would do that around the world, then future generations will be better off. As I mentioned in previous episodes, I do think that parents are responsible to set the stage for their children, what kind of world they're going to bring in, into, what kind of quality of life they're going to provide. And if we better prepare for that, then we're only better preparing future generations. We could provide them the best options, whether it's medical or whether it's educational, and have a support system where if they want to dream something, then they can go ahead and achieve it because the resources are there.
I love that. I think that's a great pin tweet that you have on your page. Like you said, I think a lot of kids or a lot of people would be better off if that's the route that people planned or set up or had for themselves. And so we definitely have kind of different not viewpoints, but starting points. Because as yourself, you do not have a child yet. For me, I had a child, and like you said, things weren't like set up in place, which would have made things a lot easier and a better foundation. And I can see where a lot of people do struggle that way because to me, you're kind of constantly playing catch up in a sense. You're trying to figure out how to build for your future, but also, give your child these opportunities.
Yeah, that's correct. You're trying to build for the future and give your child these opportunities. So, um, when you mentioned you try to play catch up, the way I see it is a lot of times you try to, in my case, was trying to dig myself out of a hole that wasn't even created by me, right? It was created by my parents. Um, and for a while, I didn't have a good relationship with them because I would literally ask them, "What were you thinking to give birth to me while you lived in the garage? Like, why? What was smart about that?" Oh, it's because we love each other. Okay, well, love doesn't pay the bills. I don't care if you love me. Don't give me love, give me money. Money makes me happy. Money takes care of everything. I've noticed that 99% of my problems are all money related, and the solution is always more money, and that takes care of it. Um, so yeah, for a while, I would literally ask them, tell me what you were thinking. I really want to know your thought process of what you were thinking to think, hey, we're in love, we live in this garage, let's make a kid. Like, help me understand why that was such a wise decision for you. Because clearly, I had to dig myself out of the hole. I had to break, as I mentioned, the chains of poverty. I mean, if people want to listen to my intro episode on Stay Winning Podcast or my first episode, I go way deeper into this with more detail. Um, and then it's a two-part thing, right? So now someone like me has to dig themselves out of a hole, right? And a lot of times it's harder to do when you don't have the resources, you don't have the mentors to do it, you don't have the examples to do it. The only examples I had were bad examples. So the examples were of what not to do. They were not examples of what to do, right? So if you have someone successful in your family, you can easily refer to them. Oh, look at so and so, they did XYZ, right? But for me, oh, look at so and so, I shouldn't do XYZ because of the situation that they're in that I clearly don't want to be in at that age. And when I mention it's a two-part situation, because parents didn't build the nest for their kids first, right? A lot of times that means they didn't build their retirement plan either. So, as I mentioned in previous episodes, that's where the unfortunate happens and a parent becomes a burden on their child later in age, right? And by building a nest, I mean something that's very, very simple. Um, so I know in my culture, it's pretty common to have multi-generational households. And what no one talks about is the clash that happens between those multi-generational households, right? So you have someone, what I like to say, a thorough mentality, like a grandparent usually, who teaches the grandchildren, hey, this is how it is, this is how it is, this is what's important, money doesn't matter. If you're happy, that's what's important. Your appearance shouldn't matter, people shouldn't judge you. Nah, fuck that. All that matters, right? So that could work in those third world countries with that thorough mentality. But in capitalist America, yeah, that matters. Your presentation matters. How you come across matters. How you articulate yourself matters. Um, and there's that culture clash that happens, right? So with the progress of technology, a lot of these multi-generational households, they can't keep up with technology. One, because it's expensive, right? Like, oh, let's get the latest TV, let's get the latest cable network, let's get the latest, I don't know, smart refrigerator, right? And then you have this younger generation that is aware of technological advances, and it's easy for them to adapt, right? So now you have a household where the kids are teaching the parents things, and I've seen where that indirectly creates an environment where a child loses respect for their parent. Because I do believe, and I could be wrong, Mark, I don't know. I want you to weigh in here. I'm not a parent yet, but I think a parent should be the one teaching their children. So if you order Wi-Fi for your family, it shouldn't be your kid hooking it up and teaching everyone else this is how you log in. It should be the parent going, hey, we set up the Wi-Fi. This is the password. And this is how you log in. And maybe I'm wrong about that because I'm not a parent yet. But I think a parent, that's just, a dumb example, but that's just one thing where I feel a parent can use it as a moment to teach someone something versus the other way around. And then it messes up dynamics of a relationship. So a father figure, of a mother figure, of a parental role or someone to look up to when it's always the child teaching the parent how to do something. So I really do think it creates a bad cycle. And that's what I mentioned in my podcast episodes. Like, it's really hard to break those chains of poverty. So in those multicultural generation households, in most cases, at least in my culture, it's you have grandparents from another country who usually don't provide any monetary value to the household, teaching grandchildren about the things in life. And don't get me wrong, you can learn a lot of great things from older people, but at least in my culture, it doesn't really align and it doesn't really correlate to success because things are different in other countries and things are different in different times. I know you and me, we talked about in previous episodes how like our older generations that we know of are better at saving versus younger generations, right? So that's just one thing that's, yeah, it's very minor. But the bad thing I see about this is that it's a cycle and the cycle of poverty just continues and continues from generation to generation when you don't build a nest. So it's very hard to get out of that. Um, and then once you're out, in the back of your mind, there's a consequence as well. I have to go back in there because they didn't plan for their future. So now I have to go take care of it. So this what might make me sound evil, but to anyone out there, you don't owe your parents anything. It is not your job to take care of them financially when they are retired. In fact, if you're watching this and they're watching this, tell them there's still time to make a change for their retirement. But it's not your job and responsibility to step up and take care of them, especially if you're in a situation like me where they didn't take care of you as a child.
I love that, man. I think what I want to touch on, and you keep kind of referencing it, is it's a cycle. And I'm just amazed at how you were able to kind of break that cycle for yourself and how you are on a different trajectory for, when you have a child or when you start a family. that you have this new cycle in place and foundation, like you're saying, to kind of provide better for your family and your child's future, and just kind of where that kind of came from. I mean, like you're saying, it's such so easy to just fall in this cycle and this path that everyone else is doing and your family was doing, and you were able to have a vision and see that and start your own cycle. So, I for me, I kind of, the whole technology thing too, I struggle with, like you kind of touched on, for us teaching our children. And I think sometimes that's where there's a struggle for me because I see the benefits of technology and my child learning and growing that way. But then you always get the backlash about too much, technology, too much screen time. And I know you got to monitor it, but a lot of times it's like, where do you draw the line on, is he learning or being educated from it or learning technology from it? So that's kind of where I struggle sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine that's very difficult to do. Um, and definitely hard to stay on top of, right? You could be asleep and they could be on a device talking to I don't know who, right? And that's yeah, that's a very, very scary thought, for sure. Um, so I know there's internet providers where you can monitor and prevent certain websites. I know there's states that have push legislation where if you're like under 15, you can't be on social media apps, right? So a lot of this stuff is so new and so fast that there's no laws or legislations yet because things have happened. Like when Uber or Lyft came out, right? They didn't have policies in place to protect the consumer as much as they do now, and they had to learn based on the things that took place. So we're still in that situation, I believe, with the internet and social media, and as the world transitions to Web3. But to go to your previous comment, yeah, I don't think there was one specific moment that made me be like, oh, I need to get out of that. I think it's a cumulative of many events where the solution that I would find would always be more money. And that's when I decided to get financially literate. So we could take the internet, for example. The internet allows you to choose what you want to consume or what you want to produce. I chose to consume money knowledge because I didn't have it in the household, but I knew the internet opens up a lot of world of opportunity where you can meet the right people. Look at this example. I met Mark. Mark's cool as fuck.
I agree, man. You too, man. I love it. I love that we met and having a lot of fun with this. And you make me think outside the box a lot of times. Like you said, for me, I felt like I kind of grew up in a bubble in a sense, growing up on an island, and my views are kind of skewed, I guess. And that's once I started seeing other things out there, like I said, even just real estate, I never thought there were homes out there for, 100,000, 200,000. I just thought everything was $1 million. And yeah, my eyes, things have just opened up for me. And in meeting people like you who have a different view on things and see the world differently, I mean, I love it. I mean, like you said, your parents or as they're older, you're not responsible for their retirement. And I kind of feel that same way where, yeah, I'm on the older side, I feel, but it's never too late to kind of educate yourself and see things differently. And like you said, change your financial future.
Yeah, for sure, man. I know it is very difficult to get out of that box. I know in your situation, as you mentioned, being in an island, right? Looking from the greater part of America to the island, we kind of see it as like, oh, you guys just chilling over there and vibing, and maybe that is the culture, right? And over here in Orange County, um, you know, there's when you look at LA, right? There's neighborhoods. You got Koreatown, you got Little Tokyo. There's neighborhoods, right? In Orange County, you kind of have that, but more like a city's perspective. So if you want to hit up Koreatown in Orange County, then you go to either Garden Grove or Buena Park. So it's more by city, right? So I think the diversity out here actually helped because I was able to see different cultures, how they do things. Like I like how it's cool when I would see my Asian friends would be like, "Oh, take off your shoes when you enter the house," and I'm like, "Wow, that's so cool!" Like it makes so much sense. Like, why do more people do this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just something so simple and dumb like that. And then, when I played soccer and I would go to these richer neighborhoods, right, as we mentioned in previous podcasts or episodes that we've done, and I would see how they lived, right? If they weren't living in multi-generational homes, um, like I was. And they knew more about things that, like my peers, they knew more about what was going on than what I knew what was going on. Because I don't know if it's a cultural thing or a multi-generational thing, but at least having that diversity here exposed me to different ideas, a world that's different than mine, right? So if I'll go over to their house, they'd be like, "Oh, let's go chill in my room." Go to the room and they had like, Nintendo 64 or something, right? But me, I couldn't even say, "Let's go to my room." I had a shared room. I didn't even have a bed. I slept on the floor in a mattress. So, I mean, since we're on, I might as well point it out. I bought a condo before I ever slept on a real bed, just for anyone out there. Like, I think that's a pretty cool story.
I saw that.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah. So when I bought a condo, I slept on an air mattress that would wake me up whenever I'd roll over to get comfortable because it'd just be too loud. But before that, growing up, I slept on the mattress on the floor. I didn't even have a base, and I never had a bed of my own until after I purchased a condo. So that goes back to the previous point, right? Like if you're gonna have a kid, man, have a place to have your kid. Like I don't think a lot of people might see, "Oh, that's mean," or "You're evil," or no. My concern is for the kid. I think the kid should be able to rest peacefully and comfortably, and I think that's a parent's responsibility to be able to provide that. I don't think that makes me an evil person, but those are the comments I get a lot of times. When I'm like, wait, no, no, it's not evil. It's actually messed up that the parent's not providing that. Like maybe they're evil or unintentionally, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I get pointed out as a bad guy for things like that. Um, and I had family, and a lot of the times I don't have to look outside family to see these problems. I had relatives, or I have relatives that didn't have a roof for their kids, right? They gave birth to two kids from two different baby daddies while living in the bedroom, and then drama happens, and then they're out, and it's like now you're worried about where you're gonna go. And when you have a kid, it's not that easy, right? Like me, I don't have a kid right now. I'm not afraid of poverty because I know I can get out, right? I'm not, I know I can go X amount of days without food. But once I have a kid, oh no, being on the street is definitely not okay because I have another mouth to feed, right? So that's one thing that example that stood out where it's like, if you would have built the nest first, you wouldn't have to worry about anyone kicking you out or where your kids are going to sleep that night and or putting another life through that situation. Um, so yeah, I'm a big believer in all those things we discussed that lead up to this, where it's work your ass off in your 20s, be smart about your money, put that money to work for you in your 30s, and in your 40s just chill and go hang out with your kid.
I think that's great advice. I think there would be so much people or families better off if that was the path they took. And what I like about what you're saying too, is, and I never really looked at it that way, but I think in Hawaii, like you're saying, the multi-generational thing is it's pretty common here, because real estate is so expensive. A lot of times there's a lot of families living together, and it's almost a common theme, and people just think that's the way to do things. And I can kind of go back to kind of living in a bubble a little bit, and you kind of just see that as that's the future, and that's how you're gonna make it here. And but yeah, like you said, just do a little bit of things different, work hard in your 20s, and get ahead and build that foundation.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's definitely easy to think that's normal and that's how things should be. Especially when you mentioned it's an expensive state, right? So Hawaii is the most expensive state. California is the second most expensive. So when I tweet all these stats about numbers and millennials and real estate, and people ask me like, "Oh, well, how do people live out there?" I'm like, "Well, really? A lot of people live in multi-generational families. Like that's just the truth. That's how they make it. So don't believe everything you see on Instagram because I could tell you out here there's very, very few millennials that live on their own. and if they live on their own, they're probably not homeowners. That's just the sad truth, right? And if they weren't doing it 3 years ago when rates were at 3% and houses were 40% cheaper, they're definitely not doing it now when rates are double that and houses are 40% more expensive. Um, but yeah, it's really hard to break out of that bubble. And my whole goal with Stay Winning Podcast is to help people break out of that chain, dig themselves out of the hole if that's where they're at. If they can relate to me in any sense, even better. So they know it can be done, that they're not alone. Maybe they don't have a mentor or a role model that they can follow. I don't like to call myself that, but if they can see a little spark of inspiration through the message I speak at Stay Winning Podcast, um, that's great. I if I can do my little part to help people break that cycle, um, I mean that's worth so much more than money to me.
Yeah, well, you're doing your part. I mean, like we talked about earlier, I mean, people are noticing and, you are climbing the charts. And, I think you mentioned you are what now, number 35 in financial podcasts.
Yeah, so according to that source, I am the number 35 financial literacy podcast in the English speaking world. And that I wasn't even aware. It was just brought up to me earlier this week. And I think that's huge, especially when you see the other names that are on the list. Um, I've done it with no guest. I've done it all by myself while working a full-time job. So it's very exciting to know um, that in a way, indirectly, I'm helping out people. And it's very exciting to know that we can only go up from here, right? Hopefully it's open the door for sponsors where I can, have some more resources there to bring guests on, get more messages across, produce more content to even reach more people. And so that's exciting. If I'm at that number now, we can only go up from here and help change more lives and build more nest so our children can be better off for sure.
Yeah, I love it, man. What are you in California again, you said?
So if you look at that list, yeah, number 35, but if you look at that list, there's only one name ahead of me that's located in California. So that makes me the number two financial literacy podcast out of California.
Who's number one in California?
Ah, I forgot. I'm sorry if you're out
Oh, no,
there.
no. But that's awesome, man. I mean, 35, I mean, considering how many podcasts are out there, I mean, that means people are noticing, man.
Yeah, yeah. I hope that's the case. I really do. I mean, I've talked to some great people already that reach out to me that have listened to my podcast. So if you guys want to talk, reach out. I do have my link in bio to schedule a brief call. It's completely free. I want to get to know more of you, and please take advantage of it before I even get busier. So take advantage before I get busier, or before it's no longer free. Um, I definitely like to talk to you guys out there and welcome it.
Yeah, man, definitely reach out to him, schedule something, but connect with him. But what else are you kind of in the near future working on?
Oh, in the near future, so I like where Elon Musk is taking X, formerly known as Twitter. So I will now be hosting spaces on X, formerly known as Twitter. I feel we can reach far greater people with a more positive message through that outlet as well. Um, because a lot of times your supporters on one platform don't really translate to another platform. So if most of my supporters are on X, then I'll just keep making content there on X. And that would be the first time I actually host a guest on there. Um, yeah, and I'm really looking forward to that because it allows people to engage with me directly while being on a Twitter space or an X space. So that's the near future. I'm a few hundred hours away from being monetized, guys. So I don't know how much longer I could do this with Mark. No offense, Mark.
No.
But when that time comes, right? I would definitely want to dedicate my time to making more content because it will be monetized. Because I want to keep building the nest bigger and bigger and bigger for when the kids come. I want to make sure there's a bed and a bedroom for them. And then when I die, I want to make sure each one of them inherits a home, or maybe even three each. Um, so But I'm glad we can do this here on Mark's channel, guys, and I appreciate the support. And I hope the message that we provided is positive. So just to summarize a little bit about today is, yeah, I think our children would be better off if we built the nest first, the way birds do it, because I feel parents are responsible for setting up the stage what kind of world they're going to bring the children into, and being able to provide the sources needed for the kids' dreams to come true, right? So if they want to be a ballerina, I mean, they don't have that in regular school, right? You got to have the resources and the time to take them to ballet school. This is one example, right? If someone wants to be a soccer player, then they can go ahead and dedicate themselves to playing soccer after school instead of going to work because of the nest that you build. And maybe they can become a professional soccer player with the time they could put into and not having to split it up between work and going after work and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I can go over some statistics with you that can back this message up a little more, but it is a very, very deep and dark hole to dig yourself out of if you're born into poverty and if you're born into a family that doesn't have any financial literacy, and if you're close to that family where that message becomes normal, and that when they say it's okay to be okay, and it's not okay to just be okay. You have to be okay with being the best version of yourself that you can be so you can provide the best for those around you that you care about.
Yeah, that's why people have to go find you on X, because you're always putting out awesome statistics out there and, kind of backing up what you're talking about and why you're talking about it. But yeah, you put out great content. So anyone listening, I would go find him on X and, go follow him. And like you said, reach out to him, connect with him and, go pick his brain a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Anything else that you want to add or
No, I
discuss on this one?
what I do want to say is when you get to number one, just don't forget about me or, it
No, not at all. No,
should be
not
in no
definitely not at
time.
all.
Should be
Definitely
in
not
no
at
time.
all.
Oh
Yeah,
well.
I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah, it's hard to forget when you remember your why every single day of why you do things. When you remember why you do things, you can keep going, and then you notice who's there uh, from day one. So, so you're there, Mark. Thank you.
No, thank you, man, for doing this and whatever. Whenever you can do it, I'll be glad to do it, man. But like I said, I know you're getting busy, so keep doing what you're doing, and we'll try to figure out when we can do this again.
For sure, man. Everyone else, make sure to like, subscribe Mark's channel. Help him get 1,000 as well.
Thanks, man.